Imagine waking up to the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the kind that promises a day full of possibilities. That's my morning ritual, courtesy of Alex, my hubby. He's the kind of guy who remembers the little things, like how I take my coffee with just a hint of cream, no sugar. Our Chicago apartment buzzes with the energy of the day ahead as we share quick pecs and talk about what's waiting for us downtown. It's the kind of routine you read about in romance novels, except it's real, and it's mine. Fast forward to our 5th anniversary, Alex pulls off the ultimate surprise, dinner at the cozy little Italian place where it all began. I mean, this guy remembers everything, right down to the table we sat at when I nearly spilled my wine, trying to play it cool. The evening was a montage of our best moments, each course bringing back memories, each conversation a reminder of why I fell for him. It was perfect, the kind of night that makes you believe in forever. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. Enter my new job at a buzzing publishing house. That's where I met David. Picture this. Tall, charming, with a passion for the classics that matches mine. Working late one night, we got lost in a conversation about Hemingway and Fitzgerald, and I caught myself laughing in a way I hadn't in years. It was electric, a spark I didn't even realize was missing. Weeks turned into months, and the once exhilarating chats with Alex began to feel more like a checklist of daily updates. Meanwhile, David seemed to occupy my thoughts more and more. It was confusing, this shift in dynamics, feeling pulled toward someone who wasn't my husband. I remember the night I spilled my guts to Lisa, my go-to for all things life. Over too much wine, I confessed how I felt alive around David, how he made me question what I wanted. Lisa's look said it all, concern, shock, a touch of, I told you so. She warned me about the dangers of mistaking excitement for something deeper. But the heart wants what it wants, right? Then, David did something that tipped the scales. He gifted me a first edition of The Great Gatsby, my literary kryptonite. It wasn't just a book. It was a message, a connection that went beyond casual work banter. That gift made me question everything, my marriage, my choices, my future. So here I am, caught in the middle of a life I thought I wanted and a passion I never saw coming. Every morning with Alex, every secret thought of David, it's like walking a tightrope between contentment and desire. And let me tell you, balancing isn't exactly my forte. Ever feel like you're sprinting down a path, heart racing, knowing you should stop but the thrill keeps you going? That's me, caught in a whirlwind I never saw coming. Alex, my rock, started sensing the shift, the way I'd linger a bit too long on my phone, the laughs that didn't reach my eyes anymore. He tried, bless him. One Friday, he comes home with this look, all hopeful, and says, "Pack a bag, babe. We're ditching the city for the weekend." A getaway to reignite whatever spark he thought we were losing. But my mind, it was miles away, tangled up with thoughts of David, his smile, our last conversation. Then came the company bash. David was there, magnetic as ever. One moment we're laughing over drinks, the next, our goodbyes blurred into a kiss that shouldn't have happened. It felt like fireworks and regrets, all at once. Walking away from him, I was a mess of exhilaration and guilt, a cocktail that left me dizzy. Alex's suspicion hit like a cold shower. "Who's David?" he asked, holding my phone one morning, a message from David lighting up the screen. I could hear the worry in his voice, a thread pulling at the fabric of our life together. "Oh, he's just a colleague. We're working on a project together," I lied, hating how easily it came out. That lie, it was the match that lit the fuse. Our home turned into a battleground, harsh words and cold shoulders replacing the warmth we once lived in. Alex's eyes, once full of love, now questioned every move I made. Despite Lisa's warnings, "You're playing with fire," she said, I kept meeting David, sneaking around like a teenager. Each secret rendezvous added another layer to the web I was weaving, a dangerous game that promised nothing but heartache. But did I listen? No, I was too caught up in the rush, the forbidden excitement that came with every stolen moment. Each lie, each secret meeting, was a step further away from the life I had built with Alex. And deep down, I knew I was walking a tightrope with no safety net below. Alex, in a last-ditch effort to pull us back from the edge, books us counseling sessions. "Let's try to fix this, together," he said, hope flickering in his eyes. I nodded, but my mind was a million miles away, tangled up in what was becoming my own secret adventure with David. My trysts with David grew bolder, intoxicating. We'd meet up in broad daylight, laughing and chatting at cafes as if we were the only two people in the world. It was reckless, a game of thrill that I couldn't stop playing. The danger of getting caught only added to the allure, a fire that kept burning brighter with every stolen moment. But, like all poorly kept secrets, ours was bound to come out. And it did, spectacularly so. Alex walked into the very cafe where David and I were lost in our little bubble. The look on Alex's face, a mix of hurt, disbelief, and anger, is something I'll never forget. The cafe went silent, all eyes on us as Alex confronted me, his voice cracking, "Is this why?" Him? There was no escaping the truth. With the world watching, I confessed, the words pouring out in a flood of guilt and shame. "Yes, it's him, I'm sorry, Alex." The words felt hollow, doing nothing to ease the pain in Alex's eyes. Our marriage, once my anchor, was now in ruins, shattered by my actions. Alex left, the door closing behind him with a finality that echoed in the empty space. Alone, I tried to convince myself that pursuing my feelings for David was the right choice, that happiness was worth the chaos. But deep down, a nagging voice whispered doubts, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had done. Then came the cold splash of reality. David, the man I risked everything for, casually mentioned he wasn't looking for anything serious. "We're just having fun, right?" he said, his words slicing through me. Fun. That's all it was to him. My world, once filled with the promise of new love, crumbled around me, leaving me to face the wreckage of my life alone. In the quiet that followed, I was left to pick up the pieces, each one a sharp reminder of the cost of following a heart that didn't know where it truly belonged. The regret was overwhelming, a bitter pill that I had no choice but to swallow, as I realized the enormity of what I had lost. In the aftermath of a storm, there's always that eerie silence, a calm that feels almost mocking. That's where I found myself, in the quiet ruins of my life, grappling with the choices that led me here. I reached out to Alex, clinging to a sliver of hope that we could mend what I had broken. But our home was empty, his absence a loud echo of my worst fears realized. I called, texted, even showed up at his office, only to be met by his friend Mark, who looked at me with a mix of pity and disdain. "He's filed for divorce," Mark said, his words a punch to the gut. "Alex doesn't want to see you." Just like that, any hope of reconciliation evaporated, leaving me to face the magnitude of my mistakes alone. The fallout was swift and merciless. Friends we once shared sided with Alex, their cold shoulders and whispered conversations painting me as the villain. I was the talk of the town, the woman who threw away a good man for a fleeting thrill. The isolation was suffocating, a constant reminder of the price of my betrayal. Work became a battlefield, whispers followed me down hallways, judgment in every glance. My relationship with colleagues, once warm and collaborative, turned frosty, the professional respect I had worked hard to build crumbling under the weight of scandal. My affair, once a secret, was now a stain on my reputation, a shadow I couldn't escape. Financially, the ground beneath me was crumbling. Alex's income, a foundation of our shared life, was gone. Bills piled up, the mortgage became a mountain I couldn't climb, each overdue notice a reminder of the security I had gambled away. The reality of my impulsive decisions stared back at me, a future filled with uncertainty and struggle. The loneliness was crushing, nights stretched on endlessly, my only company the ghost of my former life. I fell into a depression, a dark hole where regret and sorrow consumed me. The love I had forsaken, the stability I had shattered, it all weighed heavily, a burden of guilt I carried in the silence of our empty home. Then, one day, scrolling through social media, I saw Alex. There he was, smiling, a light in his eyes that had been missing for so long. He was in a new city, surrounded by new people, a fresh start miles away from the wreckage I had caused. The sight of him, looking happier and at peace without me, was both a relief and a torment. He had moved on, found a way to heal from the scars I had inflicted, while I remained trapped in the aftermath of my decisions. In that moment, I realized the full extent of what I had lost. Not just a husband, but a friend, a partner, a piece of myself. The path to forgiveness, to redemption, seemed insurmountable, a journey I would have to undertake alone. As the reality of my new beginning dawned, so did the understanding that some mistakes are irrevocable, their consequence is a shadow that lingers long after the storm has passed. The day the divorce papers landed on my doorstep felt like a cold slap of reality. There it was, in black and white, the official end to what was once a love story. Alex and I, we were over, and no amount of wishing or regret could change that. I never imagined this would be us when we said, I do. The weight of it all hit me like a ton of bricks, each word on those pages a reminder of my own undoing. I needed a friend, someone who knew me inside and out. Naturally, I thought of Lisa, but when I reached out, hoping for a bit of comfort, or maybe even a shoulder to cry on, I was met with a coldness I hadn't expected. I can't believe you did this, she said, her voice dripping with disappointment. It was clear, the damage was done, not just with Alex, but with those closest to me. Lisa, my confidant through thick and thin, had pulled away, another casualty of my choices. Alone, with too much time to think, self-reflection wasn't just an option, it was all I had. The silence of the apartment was deafening, each day a confrontation with the truth. My quest for something more, something I thought was missing, had led me to this point. I had chased a fleeting feeling at the expense of a love that was steadfast and true. The realization was a bitter pill, and swallowing it didn't come easy. Work was no escape. David, the man who once ignited a spark in me, now couldn't even meet my eyes. Our interactions were awkward, strained, and eventually, non-existent. My performance took a nosedive, and it wasn't long before my boss called me in. We're going to have to demote you, he said, not unkindly, but the disappointment was clear. There I was, professional life in tatters, a stark reflection of the personal mess I'd made. With my finances in disarray, staying in our home wasn't an option. I found myself packing up memories into boxes, moving into a space that felt as cramped and confined as my current state of mind. Each box was a reminder of what I had lost, and the small, unfamiliar apartment was a daily testament to how far I had fallen. In a moment of desperation, I penned a letter to Alex. It was filled with apologies, acknowledgments of my mistakes, and pleas for forgiveness. I poured my heart out, hoping for some kind of closure, maybe even a sign that there was a part of him that could still forgive me. But the silence that followed was answer enough. No reply came, and with each passing day, the hope that he might reach out faded into nothingness. The divorce settlement was the final nail in the coffin. What I was left with barely covered the basics, a stark contrast to the comfortable life Alex and I once shared. It was a harsh reminder of the consequences of my actions, a life now defined by scarcity and struggle. The silence in my apartment was deafening, a stark contrast to the life I once knew. My phone, once buzzing with messages from friends, now lay silent, a constant reminder of the isolation I'd brought upon myself. The fallout from my actions was swift. One by one, friends took Alex's side, leaving me to navigate the aftermath of my decisions alone. Work was no refuge, whispers of my personal turmoil had spread, and soon, talk of restructuring began to surface. The writing was on the wall, my once secure position now hanging by a thread. It seemed my personal failures were bleeding into every aspect of my life, leaving no stone unturned. In the quiet of my apartment, the reality of what I'd done hit me hard. I missed Alex, not just the man, but the stability and love he represented. Our life together, once taken for granted, now felt like a distant memory, a reminder of what I'd squandered for a fleeting passion that left me with nothing but regret. The final blow came when I realized Alex had blocked me on all social media platforms. It was as if he'd erased me from his life, a clear sign he was moving on, without me. The finality of it all was crushing, a tangible sign that there was no going back, no chance for reconciliation. Amidst this turmoil, I received a professional award at work. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a cause for celebration, a moment of pride. But without Alex to share it with, it felt hollow, an empty achievement that underscored the loneliness of my new reality. Health issues soon followed, the stress and depression taking a toll on my body. Frequent illnesses became the norm, a physical manifestation of the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. It was as if my body was rebelling against the choices I'd made, a constant reminder of the chaos I'd invited into my life. In a bid to move on, I tried dating again. Each encounter was a stark reminder of what I'd lost. No one could fill the void left by Alex. Each date ended in disappointment, reinforcing the realization that I'd let go of something irreplaceable. The knock on the door was like a punch to the gut, the delivery man handing me a stack of legal papers with a detached efficiency. Bills, once easily managed between Alex and me, now loomed large, a stark reminder of the financial quagmire my life had become. Standing in the doorway, the papers felt like chains, binding me to a reality I could no longer escape from, a reality of my own making. Then came my birthday, a day that used to be filled with laughter, surprises, and warmth. This year it was just me, in an apartment too quiet, surrounded by the ghosts of happier times. The silence was suffocating, each passing hour a heavy reminder of the void Alex's absence had left in my life. I blew out a solitary candle on a cupcake, wishing for a past that was irrevocably gone. In a masochistic twist of fate, I found a box of old photos during a desperate attempt to clutter my life. Pictures of Alex and me, smiling, carefree, in love. Each photo was a dagger. Memories of a life that felt like someone else's fairy tale. Tears blurred the images, the pain of loss mingling with a deep, unshakable longing for what had been. The universe, it seemed, wasn't done with me yet. A mutual friend's event brought me face to face with Alex for the first time since our split. I had rehearsed what I would say, how I would act, but all of that fell away when I saw him. He looked through me, his gaze devoid of any recognition or warmth, as if I were a stranger. That look, that moment of absolute indifference, hurt more than any argument we'd ever had. It was then, watching him interact with others, laughing, alive in a way he hadn't been with me towards the end, that the final piece of denial crumbled. Alex had moved on, truly and completely. The realization was a cold wave, washing over me, leaving a numbness in its wake. I was stuck, anchored to my mistakes, while he had found a way to sail on. The days that followed were a blur, a downward spiral where each moment was a reminder of the enormity of what I had lost. My life, once so full of love and potential, was now a shadow, a collection of could-have-beens and should-have-dones. The culmination of this journey through hell came unexpectedly, on a rainy evening as I passed our old home. There, in the window, I saw a celebration, a gathering of friends and family. A mutual acquaintance, spotting me in the rain, approached with a hesitant step. "Did you hear? Alex is getting remarried," she said, her voice a mix of sympathy and discomfort. The words hit me like a physical blow, the finality of our goodbye crystallizing in that moment. The rain masked my tears, but nothing could hide the shattering of my heart. I had lost Alex, not just to circumstance or fate, but to another future, one where I had no place. That night, as the rain soaked through my clothes, I understood the true cost of my actions. The irrevocable goodbye wasn't just Alex's to me, but mine to the life we had shared, to the person I had been. In chasing a fleeting passion, I had thrown away something precious, something irreplaceable. And now, all I had left were the pieces of a life I no longer recognize, a haunting lesson in the consequences of our The Miami sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the luxury beachside resort where I was kicking off my bachelorette party. This is it, I thought, trying to shake off the guilt brewing inside me. My last night of freedom. But freedom from what? A loving fiancé who'd do anything for me? The irony wasn't lost on me, yet there I was, surrounded by my bridesmaids, ready to dive into a night of supposed fun and abandon. The resort was buzzing with energy, people laughing, dancing, the air filled with the scent of salt and cocktails. That's when I met Lucas. He was like a character out of a movie, charming, with a reckless kind of allure that I found myself drawn to. "You're absolutely radiant tonight," he said, his voice smooth, eyes locked on mine. It was thrilling, dangerous, and I was caught up in the moment, letting myself be swept away by his adventurous spirit. One drink turned into several, and before I knew it, Lucas and I were stumbling into his hotel room, laughter fading into the background. The realization of what I was doing hit me too late. Michael, my fiancé, trusted me completely. He was probably at home, thinking about our future, while I was betraying him in the worst possible way. The guilt hit me like a freight train the next morning. I snuck back to my room, my heart pounding, dreading that my bridesmaids would notice my absence. But they were all asleep, oblivious to my late-night escapade. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding, but the relief was short-lived. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Last night was unforgettable. Thank you." Panic surged through me, this couldn't be happening. I quickly deleted the message, hoping to erase any evidence of my mistake. But the guilt remained, etched into my conscience. Returning home was like walking into a different world. Michael greeted me with open arms, his eyes filled with so much love and trust that it made my stomach churn. "I missed you," he said, and I felt like the worst person alive. How could I have done this to him? To us? A week before our wedding, I overheard Michael talking about his bachelor party. "Just a quiet night with the guys," he said, and my heart sank even lower. There he was, planning a simple, honest night with his friends, while I couldn't even bring myself to complete the thought. The contrast between Michael's devotion and my betrayal was stark, unbearable. I had strayed, caught up in a moment of recklessness, and now I was living a lie. The guilt was suffocating, a constant reminder of the choice I made that night in Miami. As I looked into Michael's trusting eyes, I couldn't help but wonder, can I ever make this right? But deep down, I knew some mistakes were irrevocable, and this was one of them. The dress-fitting room was swamped with tulle and satin, my maid of honor buzzing around me, her excitement palpable. But I couldn't match her energy. My mind was elsewhere, haunted by memories of Miami, and she noticed. "Hey, you seem off today. Everything okay?" she asked, her brows knitting together in concern. I forced a smile, "Yeah, just wedding jitters, you know?" But the lie tasted bitter on my tongue. The next day at the office, a delivery guy walked in with a bouquet of flowers so large it nearly eclipsed him. My heart sank as he headed straight for my desk. "For you," my coworker chirped, placing the bouquet and an accompanying note in my hands. Lucas's handwriting stared back at me, words of a night I wished to forget weaving a heavy guilt around my heart. I looked around, panic setting in, and then, without thinking, I shoved the flowers into the trash. But not before another coworker, phone in hand, snapped a picture. "Who's the mystery man?" she teased, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. It didn't take long for the photo to make its rounds on social media, a wildfire I couldn't control. And then, it reached the one person I hoped it never would, one of Michael's friends. The text came in like a bullet. "Hey, saw the flowers? Who's congratulating you?" My stomach twisted into knots. The lie formed quickly, a reflex born of desperation. "Oh, just some distant relative. Wedding stuff, you know?" But the lie did little to quell the storm. Michael confronted me that evening, his voice steady but his eyes searching. "Flowers from a distant relative, huh?" I nodded, avoiding his gaze. "Yeah, isn't that weird?" The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken accusations and crumbling trust. Then, 2 days later, the situation worsened. A mutual friend, unaware of the ticking time bomb he was carrying, mentioned seeing me at the resort in Miami. "You were living it up with some guy," he laughed, oblivious to the way Michael's face closed off. The information added fuel to Michael's growing doubts, a fact I couldn't ignore when he began pulling away, masking his hurt with excuses about wedding stress. The distance between us grew palpable, a gulf widened by secrets and lies. Michael's warmth cooled into a polite detachment, his laughter less frequent, his touches fewer. The foundation we'd built seemed to crumble under the weight of my actions, leaving me to wonder if the gap could ever be bridged again. Each attempt at conversation felt like walking on eggshells, the once easy banter replaced by strained civility. The irony of our situation wasn't lost on me. Here we were, about to commit to a lifetime together, yet we'd never felt further apart. The man who once shared his dreams and fears with me now shared nothing but the bare minimum, a courtesy afforded to a stranger rather than a partner. And as much as I wanted to bridge that gap, to confess and beg for forgiveness, fear kept me silent. Fear of losing him, fear of the truth, fear of a future where the only thing we shared was a painful memory of what could have been. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button, it really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. My hands trembled as I pulled Michael's jacket from the closet, searching for a pen. Instead, a business card fluttered to the floor, its stark lettering catching my eye, a private investigator's contact information. My heart sank. He knows, I whispered to the empty room, the reality of my situation crashing down around me. Michael was hunting for proof of my betrayal, and it felt like the ground was opening up beneath me. In a state of sheer panic, I grabbed my phone and dialed Lucas, the man who had become the symbol of my biggest mistake. "Lucas, please, if anyone asks, we just talked that night, nothing more," I pleaded, my voice shaking. The coldness in his reply sent chills down my spine. "I'm not lying for you," he said before hanging up. His refusal was a blow, leaving me feeling even more isolated and desperate. Days later, the inevitable happened. Michael sat me down, his hands trembling as he slid a set of photos across the table. Pictures of Lucas and me, undeniable proof of my infidelity. "Is this why?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, yet each word cut through me like a knife. The pain in his eyes was unbearable, a stark reflection of the betrayal he felt. With nowhere left to hide, I confessed. Tears streamed down my face as I tried to explain, to apologize, to do anything to mend the chasm I'd created. But Michael sat in silence, his expression unreadable, the warmth and love that once lived in his eyes now replaced with a void. The fallout was swift. Michael called off the wedding, citing irreconcilable differences to our families and friends. He spared me the humiliation of public disgrace, but the truth had a way of twisting itself into rumors that spread like wildfire. My phone became a constant source of torment, buzzing with messages of hate and condemnation from people who only knew half the story. Each notification was a reminder of the life I'd ruined, the love I'd betrayed. Isolation became my new normal. Friends I'd laughed with, family who'd supported me, even acquaintances who'd smiled in passing, all seemed to turn their backs, leaving me to navigate a sea of judgment and scorn alone. The few who did reach out did so with words that felt like daggers, their disappointment clear, their support withdrawn. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of my actions bore down on me with suffocating intensity. The bustling life I once knew, filled with plans for the future and the warmth of loved ones, had crumbled into a desolate existence marked by regret and loneliness. The vibrant world outside seemed to carry on without a hitch, indifferent to the personal apocalypse that had upended my life. The stark contrast between my past and present was a bitter pill to swallow. I found myself longing for a way to turn back time, to make different choices, to say the right things. But as each day passed, the reality of my situation grew clearer. There was no going back, no undoing the hurt I'd caused. The path ahead was uncertain, paved with the consequences of a single night's mistake, and the only way forward was to face the aftermath head-on, no matter how daunting it seemed. The day my world turned upside down wasn't marked by any grand catastrophe. There was no storm, no ominous music playing in the background. It was just me, standing in the middle of our apartment, staring at the emptiness Michael left behind. His clothes, his books, even his favorite coffee mug, gone. It hit me then, the magnitude of my mistake, the reality of my new normal. The confrontation with my bridesmaids came soon after. We met at our usual spot, a cozy little cafe downtown, but the warmth we once shared was replaced by a cold distance. "We need to know the truth," they said, their voices a mixture of hurt and disbelief. The story poured out of me in a torrent of tears and apologies, but the damage was done. The women I considered my sisters turned their backs on me, their own sense of betrayal too deep to overlook. Coming home to face my parents was no easier. The disappointment in their eyes cut deeper than any words could. "How could you do this to yourself?" "To Michael?" they asked, their voices heavy with grief. The family that stood by me through every high and low couldn't comprehend how I'd thrown away everything for a moment of recklessness. Their heartbreak was a reflection of my own, a mirror to the pain I'd inflicted not just on Michael, but on everyone who loved me. But the silence from Michael was the hardest to bear. Calls went unanswered, texts ignored. The man I loved, who promised to stand by me through thick and thin, had cut me out completely. It was as if I'd become a ghost in his life, an unpleasant memory to be erased and forgotten. In a moment of sheer desperation, I reached out to Lucas, hoping for some semblance of support, maybe even understanding. But the cold reality of his blocked number was like a slap in the face. I was truly alone, left to navigate the aftermath of my actions without a lifeline. The universe seemed to twist the knife further when I ran into Michael at a coffee shop. Our eyes met for a fleeting second, but there was no recognition, no warmth. He looked through me, and in that moment, I understood the full extent of what I'd lost. Not just a partner, but a friend, a confidant, a piece of my soul. Watching Michael rebuild his life on social media was a daily torture I couldn't escape. Pictures of him smiling, surrounded by friends, moving on without me. Each post was a reminder of the life I could have had, the happiness I'd sabotaged with my own hands. Work became a minefield of whispered conversations and pitiful glances. My professional reputation, once built on hard work and dedication, now overshadowed by the scandal of my personal life. "Have you heard about her?" they'd whisper, as if I wasn't there, as if I wasn't already drowning in my own shame. The isolation was suffocating, a constant reminder of the consequences of my actions. Every day was a struggle to find a reason to keep moving forward, to face the judgmental stares and the whispered condemnations. My life, once full of love and laughter, had become a lonely path of redemption I wasn't sure I deserved. The realization that I was the architect of my own downfall was a bitter pill to swallow, a lesson learned too late in a game where the stakes were my entire world. In the midst of my newfound solitude, I stumbled upon a letter tucked away in a forgotten corner of our apartment. Michael's handwriting, once a source of joy, now brought a fresh wave of pain. He had penned his dreams for our future together, a future I had carelessly shattered. Each word was a knife, twisting deeper into the heart of my regret. As I navigated the aftermath of my actions, the world seemed to shrink around me. Mutual friends, once shared between Michael and me, began to drift away, their loyalties lying clearly with him. His dignity through the ordeal won them over, while I was left to grapple with the consequences of my betrayal alone. Determined to escape the shadow of my past, I sought out new beginnings. I tried new hobbies, forced myself into social gatherings, hoping to find a sliver of the person I used to be. But my past clung to me like a second skin, coloring every interaction, every attempted connection with suspicion and wariness. The blow came when a friend, hesitant and clearly uncomfortable, broke the news to me. Michael was seeing someone new. A mutual acquaintance, known for her kindness and integrity, now stood in the place I once occupied. The news was a gut punch, a stark reminder of what I had lost and what I could never reclaim. Compelled by a sense of guilt and a desperate need for closure, I reached out to Michael's new partner. I wanted to apologize, to make amends, however possible. But the response was a polite refusal. "I appreciate your reaching out, but Michael's healing is my priority right now," she said, her voice firm yet kind over the phone. The conversation was brief, the finality of her words leaving no room for argument or hope of reconciliation. As if the universe hadn't finished with me, a final reminder of my folly arrived in the mail. The wedding venue, with its bill for the cancelled event, seemed to mock me. The costs, both financial and emotional, of my actions were laid bare, a tangible representation of a future I had squandered for a fleeting moment of folly. Attempting to move forward, I ventured back into the dating scene, only to find that my reputation preceded me. Whispers of my infidelity made rounds, turning what should have been fresh starts into dead ends. Potential partners were few and far between, those who dared to show interest quickly dissuaded by the cautionary tale that was my past. Each day brought its own challenges, a constant battle between the desire to move forward and the weight of my past dragging me back. My actions had set into motion a series of events that I could neither control nor escape. The path to redemption was unclear, fraught with obstacles and reminders of the love and life I had once taken for granted. As I faced each day, the realization that some mistakes are too great to ever fully overcome loomed large, a shadow from which I could not escape. The day that should have been filled with laughter, love, and I-do's was instead spent in the echoing silence of my apartment. The calendar mocked me, the date circled in a now bitter red. It was supposed to be my wedding day. Instead, I sat alone, a cup of coffee my only companion, lost in the maze of what-ifs and if-onlys. The happiness I had so carelessly thrown away seemed like a distant dream, leaving a hollow ache in its wake. Later, scrolling through social media for some semblance of connection, I stumbled upon a post that stopped me cold. There, in my feed, was Michael, down on one knee in the very spot where our journey had begun. The caption read, "A new chapter," with her, his new girlfriend, beaming, her hand extended to show off the ring. The image was a stark reminder of the future I had lost, now happily claimed by someone else. Seeking solace, I turned to therapy, a weekly pilgrimage where I laid bare the tangle of guilt and regret that had become my constant companions. Why did I do it? I'd ask over and over, hoping for some enlightenment, a way to forgive myself. But understanding my actions didn't erase the past, nor did it dull the ache of knowing the hurt I had caused. An unexpected test came in the form of a wedding invitation, a beautiful card that arrived with my name on it, a reminder of happier times from a former friend. The hope that it sparked was quickly doused when a follow-up message came, cold and clear. "Given your past, we think it's best if you don't attend." The rejection stung, another consequence of my actions, another bridge burned. Even my parents, my rocks, seemed to tread carefully around me, their support tinged with disappointment. "We just want you to learn from this," they'd say, their love unconditional yet cautious, as if afraid that one wrong move could send me spiraling down again. Their hope for my redemption was a fragile thing, a beacon I struggled to reach. The decision to move to a new city came from a desperate need to escape, to start anew where no one knew my name or my shame. But as I quickly learned, the past is a shadow that follows closely, unfazed by distance or time. Social media became the thread that connected my old life to my new, carrying whispers of my mistakes across the miles. In this new city, I found myself shrinking, my once outgoing nature replaced by reserved caution. The fear of judgment, of being defined by a single mistake, colored my every interaction. I became a shadow of myself, wary of forming connections only to have them severed by the inevitable revelation of my past. Starting a new job brought a brief respite, a chance to prove myself in a fresh arena. But the reprieve was short-lived. a coworker, a transplant from my old city, recognized me. The whispers started anew, the story of my broken engagement a juicy tidbit in the break room, a scarlet letter I couldn't shed. Each day became a balancing act, a struggle to build a new life while the specter of my past loomed large. The journey of self-improvement and redemption was a solitary one, paved with setbacks and small victories. Amidst the judgment and the gossip, the hardest battle was with myself, learning to forgive the person in the mirror, to believe in the possibility of a future unmarred by mistakes of the past. The day I decided to volunteer for community service was the day I chose to take a step forward, however small. It was my attempt to claw back some sense of self-worth, to try and make amends to a universe I felt I had wronged. Maybe this is where I start to make things right, I told myself, pulling on the volunteer vest like it was armor against my own self-doubt. It was there, amidst stacks of donated goods and the hustle of other volunteers, that I met Anna. She was a force of nature, her laughter ringing loud and her hands always moving. But it was her story that struck a chord deep within me. Like me, she had navigated the treacherous waters of betrayal and come out the other side. "It doesn't define you," she said, her eyes holding a mix of pain and resilience. In her, I found an unexpected ally, someone who understood the jagged path I was walking. But healing isn't linear. The anniversary of what would have been my wedding day loomed large, a ghost of a date that brought with it a tsunami of sadness. Memories of the happiness I thought I'd have flooded back, overwhelming me with a sense of loss so profound it felt physical. It was supposed to be my forever, I whispered to the empty room, the weight of what I'd destroyed settling heavy on my chest. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife a little deeper, Michael's wedding photos surfaced online. There he was, the picture of happiness, his smile bright and his new wife radiant by his side. The contrast between his joy and my ongoing struggle was stark, a reminder of the life I could have had, of the love I'd squandered. Each image was a window into a world where I no longer belonged, a narrative I had written myself out of with my actions. Sitting in my new apartment, the silence felt oppressive, the solitude a constant reminder of the price of my choices. It wasn't just Michael I had lost, it was the trust, the shared dreams, the future we had meticulously planned together. The realization was crushing, a bitter acknowledgement of the full extent of my loss. I had gambled everything on a fleeting moment of recklessness and lost more than I ever imagined possible. As the night drew on, the city lights flickering to life outside my window, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. From the dizzying heights of love and anticipation to the depths of guilt and isolation, it had been a stark descent. Yet, in the darkness, there were pinpricks of light, the kindness of a new friend, the purpose found in giving back, the slow, painstaking work of building something new from the ashes of my past. The path ahead was uncertain, shrouded in the shadows of my mistakes, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. It was faint, easily drowned out by the clamor of my regrets, but it was there. In the end, it wasn't about forgetting the past or escaping the consequences of my actions. It was about learning to live with them, about finding a way to move forward despite the scars. And as I looked out at the night sky, I realized that maybe, just maybe, there was a future out there for me too, a chance to write a new story on the blank pages that, you know that feeling when you're about to do something monumentally stupid? That mix of adrenaline and a sinking feeling in your stomach, like you're willingly stepping onto a roller coaster that's gonna derail? That was me, adjusting that ridiculous lacy garter belt. One night as the bride, then back to Ben. Back to spreadsheets, sensible dinners, and that smile of his. A smile that used to make me feel safe, but lately, kinda suffocated. My girls were going wild. Tequila flowed, laughter echoed, the perfect bachelorette blur, right? Only, I wasn't feeling it. Not truly. More like I was performing, carefree Emily, instead of actually being her. Maybe that's why my gaze snagged on him across that crowded, sweaty bar. Eyes like a shot of dark liquor, nothing like Ben's gentle brown. Cliché as hell, but damn, those eyes cut through the bachelorette haze. His name was Alex, and let's cut the crap, the dude was smooth. Each drink he bought me, each whisper of, "A woman like you deserves more," chipped away at my resolve. He wasn't just flirting, he was flirting with the part of me that felt buried. Not just Ben's future wife, but Emily. Stupid, reckless, and maybe a bit desperate for something to make me feel truly alive again. The rest of the night is a jumble. More drinks, friends' faces fading in and out, his hand on mine under the table, a spark that traveled way further than it should have. Some part of me screamed this was wrong, another part screamed louder, wanting excitement, danger, anything other than the predictable path laid out before me. Cab ride was a blur, that stupid garter belt around my thigh feeling more like a noose. My apartment, the key turning. It felt less like a choice and more like a landslide. Yet, I let myself fall. Alex wasn't just cute, that's the thing. He had this intensity to him, the way his eyes seemed to cut through all the layers I'd built over the years. With Ben, I always felt known, but also a bit predictable to him. Alex, meanwhile, made me feel like a book he couldn't wait to crack open, a puzzle he was determined to solve. Should have set off alarm bells, but in that moment, when my skin practically buzzed where his arm grazed mine, it felt thrilling. My friends were lost in their own world. Giggles, shots, the usual bachelorette chaos swirled around us like background noise. Usually, I'd be right there with them, matching their energy, being the picture-perfect bride-to-be. That night, though, they felt like distant figures in a movie I was watching. Alex's words, his touch, they held me captive. With Ben, everything was comfortable. We had our routines, our inside jokes, a life carefully planned out. It should have been enough. But as Alex's hand brushed my knee, tracing lazy circles over my skin, a trayer's thought whispered through the haze of tequila and flashing lights. Maybe comfortable wasn't the same as electrifying. "You deserve better," Alex murmured into my ear. It was the cheesiest line in the book, but with a shot of whiskey coursing through my veins and those smoldering eyes holding mine, it felt dangerous. And damn tempting. Another drink appeared in front of me, Alex's fingers now squeezing my thigh gently. The touch itself was almost innocent. Yet, it ignited something long dormant in me, a craving for the kind of spark Ben never offered. Ben was solid, a man who'd always be there, socks matching, dinner ready, that sweet kiss before bed. But was being someone's safe bet truly what I wanted? The thought terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. He didn't look at me like I was Ben's future wife, a walking checklist of adult success. Alex looked at me like I was Emily, a woman aching for a fire I didn't even realize had dwindled to embers. His gaze felt like a dare, his touch an invitation to stoke the flames. Maybe this was all a recipe for disaster, a fleeting moment of madness fueled by bachelorette tequila and my own restlessness. But in that moment, as my rational side screamed to pull away, another part of me, a part I'd barely acknowledged in years, whispered, "Let's see what happens if I burn." His voice was quiet, yet it cut through the pulsating music and the haze in my head. Maybe it was the way his eyes held mine for a beat too long, the way his words sliced through my guilt. "Let's get out of here." It sounded less like a question, more like an escape route, a dare laid out before me. Suddenly, the sweaty club, the shrieking laughter of my girls, the flashing lights, it all felt suffocating. That comfy life I'd built with Ben, once a source of security, now closed in on me like a claustrophobic cage. All I could focus on was the heat radiating from Alex's body next to mine, the insistent thrum in my blood that echoed his words, a promise of reckless abandon. The cab was a cocoon of darkness, a moving bubble of reckless desire. Streetlights flashed past and melted away, like scenes from a fever dream. His hand on my thigh felt like a brand, and honestly, that scared the hell out of me. Yet, as my traitorous fingers trailed along his knuckles, tracing the veins on the back of his hand, it felt perversely liberating too, like I was throwing a lit match on all I knew and watching it burn. We were strangers, in the truest sense of the word, Alex and I. Two people connected by nothing more than a few loaded glances, tequila bravado, and a shared desperation to ditch responsibility for a few fleeting hours. Yet this intimacy wasn't like Ben's. This wasn't a gentle hand on my back, the soft comfort of a shared pillow. This was raw, unpredictable, a thrilling kind of danger that makes you feel both reckless and fiercely, terrifyingly alive. My apartment door, a beacon of safety and routine, now felt like a precipice, the edge of a cliff. The key in the lock trembled slightly, echoing the tremor in my own hands. Alex's eyes found mine in the dim hallway, questioning, hungry. This wasn't just a kiss, a fumble in the back of a taxi. This was me choosing to dismantle my entire life, piece by painstaking piece. It was a choice I knew would have devastating consequences. Hesitation gnawed at me for a fraction of a second, a tiny voice whispering, "You'll regret this, you'll lose everything." Then, with a sickening twist of the key, I stepped over the threshold. It was both a liberation and a death sentence, a choice I couldn't take back. Because as I closed the door, as Alex's hand slipped under my shirt, the realization crashed down on me. Everything I'd known, everything I held dear had just detonated. This wasn't a fling, it was an earthquake, leaving only rubble where my predictable life once stood. Waking up was a brutal slap across the face, sunlight knifed through my heavy lids, each ray a stark reminder of the wreckage I'd created in the dark. Alex was already gone, a silent ghost slipping out of my life as easily as he entered it. Beside my rumpled sheets lay only a faint smell of his cologne, the crushing weight of my betrayal, and a gnawing question. If this grand passion was fleeting, what the hell had I done? A surge of panic clawed at my chest, but it was mixed with an even more unsettling sensation. Relief? A sliver of twisted satisfaction amidst the shame, like I'd finally broken free of a suffocating weight. It made me hate myself a little more, realizing that maybe a part of me had been craving an escape from the predictable, from the settled future laid out before me. My phone buzzed. It was Ben, his smiling face, beaming next to a, "Good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to make you my wife." Text felt like a cruel joke. Nausea twisted in my gut, each word like a punch to the stomach. His picture was sweet, familiar, the epitome of everything I should have wanted. But now, each pixel felt like a stranger's face, highlighting the chasm I'd created. Every ring, every cheerful vibration, became a countdown to an explosion I knew was inevitable. The life I'd carefully pieced together with Ben was about to splinter apart, all because of a night fueled by tequila and a desperate, selfish need for something more. Yet, as shame battled with a strange sense of defiant freedom, those unanswered texts were also a lifeline I couldn't bring myself to grasp. With each tap of the screen, I could have stopped the avalanche. One quick confession, a tearful apology, and maybe this could have been dismissed as a drunken mistake. The ring on my finger, a beautiful, sparkling thing that once gleamed with promise, now felt like a shackle. A stark reminder of everything I'd thrown away, and a sickening realization it wasn't even for some grand love for another man. The truth tasted bitter in my mouth. I'd traded commitment, stability, and the love of a good man for a fleeting hit of excitement, an escape from boredom. Maybe that's what hurt the most, knowing it wasn't even a worthy sacrifice. I'd upended my world not for a burning passion, but for a pathetic desire to shake things up. The shower ran cold long before the feeling of being tainted faded. It was a useless exercise, the sting of frigid water nowhere near as harsh as my own self-loathing. Alex's touch lingered like a brand on my skin, a phantom sensation seared into my consciousness. It made crawling back into bed, hiding beneath the covers seem like the only logical option. Yet, the darkness offered no escape, only magnified the relentless buzzing of my phone. My once vibrant group chat with the girls was now a bombardment of panicked questions. "Emily, where the hell are you? Girl, this isn't funny. Ben is freaking out." Each text was laced with a growing mixture of worry and anger, and rightfully so. Lying felt infinitely easier than admitting I'd blown up my life in spectacular fashion, but those unanswered messages were an ugly reflection of the person I'd become. Even worse were Ben's messages. His initial confusion turned to rising panic, each unanswered voicemail twisting a knife deeper into my already shredded heart. It went beyond just ghosting him, it was a profound violation of his trust. The man who believed in me unconditionally, the one I'd promised to always be honest with. I was now actively deceiving him, every tick of the clock digging a deeper hole of dishonesty. With each passing hour, the chasm I'd created widened. The Emily he knew, the dependable and loving one, ceased to exist. I was a stranger now, both to him and myself. The shame was suffocating, a thick fog suffocating any remnants of my old life. The urge to disappear entirely, to curl up in a ball and wait for this nightmare to end was almost overwhelming. Yet, a twisted part of me clung to the silence. Each time my finger hovered over the call button, a fresh wave of terror washed over me. I couldn't face him, couldn't bear witness to Ben's world crumbling, all because of my selfishness. So, I remained trapped in a limbo of my own making. Every ring of my phone, every tentative knock on the door, filled me with dread and a sickening hope. If he discovered the truth, if the storm broke, maybe I wouldn't have to be the one to detonate it all. It was the logic of a broken person, the desperate wish to be punished, absolved through force rather than through facing my own terrible actions. I wasn't prepared for the knock. I figured it'd be a hurricane of calls, relentless texting, maybe a public breakdown at my office, dragging me out of the life we'd built in a blaze of humiliation. I never considered he'd show up at my door, the quiet sanctuary now transformed into a torture chamber of my own making. But with each desperate pound against the wood, I knew delaying the inevitable was over. This was the moment I'd simultaneously dreaded and prayed for, a horrifying crossroads where facing my actions would be both release and further ruin. His voice filtered through the door, choked and raw. "Emily, please open the door. Please." The tears that choked his words, the trembling in his voice, were more devastating than any screaming match. This was the sound of a man utterly blindsided by the woman he thought he knew inside out, his world reduced to rubble in an instant. It shattered the pathetic defenses I'd constructed, the lies dying before they could even take shape. Suddenly, pretending I'd been kidnapped or hit by a bus felt like a sick joke, an insult to his intelligence, his shattered heart. "How could you?" Just 3 words, yet they hit me with the force of a judge's gavel. It wasn't an accusation, but a plea for understanding from someone lost and broken. My stomach turned, a wave of nausea rising in sync with the realization that I had no answers, none that really mattered. That was the core of my shame. There was nothing tragic, no grand love story behind this betrayal. One night, a stupid desire to shake things up, a moment of reckless selfishness, and look what I'd become, architect of Ben's suffering. His sobs tore through me, each one a searing indictment. There was nothing more monstrous than inflicting this pain, this gut-wrenching destruction, on the man who loved me unconditionally. Those tortured sounds cut me deeper than any angry accusations. They were the unbearable echo of my own guilt. Any ounce of pathetic self-preservation crumbled to dust. At that moment I had only one desperate, futile desire. To erase the past, to take back the impulsive choices that had led me here, that had turned me into this woman, this stranger he no longer even recognized. I'm so sorry." I finally choked out, but the apology felt empty, a pathetic plaster for a self-inflicted mortal wound. I wanted to explain, to beg for forgiveness I knew I didn't deserve, to claw back some semblance of his love. But how could I? Could I tell him I got bored, craved a jolt of excitement, that I took his trust and torched it for a few hours of cheap thrills? He deserved so much more than this pathetic, broken version of the woman he thought he'd marry. It was a monstrous irony, realizing only in this moment of utter destruction the magnitude of the love I'd so heartlessly thrown away. The days blurred into weeks, each one a slow-motion car crash. The weight of my betrayal settled on me like a suffocating blanket. Sleep became an unattainable luxury, nights a battleground where memories of Ben's bewildered face, his choked sobs, replayed in a tortuous loop. Each morning brought not relief, but a renewed dose of dread. This wasn't just an aftermath of a breakup, it was an aftermath of my own doing. The people in town, once just familiar faces, became an audience to my public humiliation. The pitying glances, the whispers behind my back, felt like a constant branding. Everyone knew, it seemed. Everyone but Ben. He was now a haunting absence. The texts I'd agonized over remained unsent, the phone calls unanswered. Each attempt to reach out died on my lips, crushed by the knowledge that no apology, no explanation, could stitch together what I'd shattered. Trying to justify my actions was like trying to repair a demolished building with a roll of Scotch tape, futile and insulting. My apartment, once a space of cozy familiarity, was now a mausoleum of our shattered future. The wedding dress, once a symbol of joy, hung lifeless in the closet. Seeing its pristine white against the pale wall was a daily jab to the heart. It should have been a beacon of hope, now it just mocked what I'd lost. My friends became a revolving door of well-meaning but ultimately unhelpful faces. Some were laced with quiet judgment, their eyes saying what their lips wouldn't. You made your bed, now lie in it. Others offered a pity that felt almost worse, a constant reminder that I was now the broken one, the one everyone whispered about. But none of them, not my closest girlfriends, could fathom the twisted knot in my gut. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was the shame of knowing I'd destroyed a good life, a good love, all for. Well, I still couldn't pinpoint exactly what. The glimmering hope, if you could call it that, came in the most unexpected moments. A flicker of rage, burning away the tears and regret, reminding me there was a spine somewhere underneath the crushing guilt. An unexpected fit of laughter, a reminder that maybe I wasn't completely irredeemable. A tiny voice whispering, "You will survive this." It was a weak whisper, lost in the storm of pain and self-loathing, but it was there, offering the faintest lifeline. Maybe the Emily I knew wasn't entirely lost, maybe there was a way to rebuild something, someone, from the ashes. But right now, all I could grapple with was one agonizing truth. I was the monster of my own story. Life became a series of bleak rituals, the nightly takeout containers piling up on the counter, cheap wine staining the tablecloth and my lips, the hollow ritual of trying to numb the relentless ache inside. Netflix shows flickered meaninglessly in the background, a dull soundtrack to the emptiness that had taken root in my apartment, in my soul. Some nights, I'd catch my reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the hollow-eyed stranger with smeared mascara and trembling hands. There was a desperation in those haunted eyes, yet also a flicker of something like defiance. This wasn't rock-bottom surrender, not yet. It was a woman teetering on the edge of a chasm, terrified of the fall, yet aware that crawling back to safety might no longer be an option. In a desperate attempt for control, I signed up for a kickboxing class. The relentless ache of guilt needed a physical outlet, and punching a bag with bone-jarring force offered a kind of twisted relief. It wasn't healthy, wasn't healing, but it was something, replacing the tears with sweat and the sting in my heart with a burn in my muscles. Each jab was a silent scream, a futile attempt to externalize the destruction I'd inflicted upon myself. Then, like a beacon of blinding light amidst the fog, a job offer arrived. A new city, a fresh start, an escape route from the suffocating whispers and pitying glances. It should have felt like a lifeline, but the exhilaration was quickly crushed by a nauseating wave of cowardice. Running away wasn't a solution, merely a postponement of facing the wreckage I'd created. It was admitting utter defeat, proof that I couldn't even stand to be alone with the consequences of my actions. Therapy, the inevitable next step, offered little solace. Each session became a grueling excavation of my own flaws. Why did I crave chaos? Why did commitment feel like a trap? Why did I destroy something truly good, and possibly the last chance for real love I'd ever get? The therapist, patient and insightful, always led me to the same terrifying question. What did you truly want, Emily? I didn't have the answers. Not noble ones, anyways. Just the gnawing realization that happiness, as I'd pictured it, might have been a lie all along. Those perfect images of cozy evenings and shared dreams, once so comforting, now felt artificial. A mask for some deep discontent I'd never dared acknowledge. What did I want? The answer echoed in the empty silence of her office, in the hollowness of my own heart. Yet, within that terrifying void flickered a sliver of something. Not peace, not understanding, but a raw, untamed potential. Perhaps this destruction, my utter rock bottom, was also the starting point of something new, of finding a truth within myself that was as messy as